Zach, who's calling in from London. Zach, what is going on?
Yeah, hi, nice show. Just wanted to ask a question, because usually when atheists and religious people speak, when religious people state their beliefs, what usually follows from the atheists is that they want evidence for those beliefs. So I was just going to ask whether you thought or considered that, whether you considered a belief to be a claim.
Yeah, I'll go first on this one since John went first last time. A belief being a claim, yes. If you're claiming that something exists, for example, if you claim a belief that something exists, whether it be Bigfoot, aliens, God, I think it's natural to want evidence for that claim, right? The burden of proof relies on the person making the claim. Now, if we're talking about atheism in particular, most atheists that you talk to, we're not necessarily claiming that God doesn't exist, because you can't really do that, right? How do you prove that something doesn't exist? But you can say that you lack a belief in something, or you choose not to believe until you see evidence otherwise. So I think that's how a lot of people would frame that issue. But yes, in short, I do think that if you're going to claim something, yeah, the evidence, the burden of proof, that's going to be on you. But what do you think about that, John?
I agree.
All right. Well, there you go. Zach, what do you think about that?
So would you? Yeah, I mean, are you going by definition? Are you saying that the definition of a belief is a claim?
I don't know if the definition of a belief is a claim. I'd say I can't imagine a belief without some sort of claim. Can you imagine a belief that doesn't involve a claim?
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't like to go back and forth with definitions. But if, for example, if I said I believe you have $10 in your pocket, am I making the claim that you have $10 in your pocket?
Good question. Yeah, if you, and this goes back to like epistemology and stuff, right? Like if you believe you have, somebody else has $10 in your club, are you making the claim? Yeah, I'd have to say so, because you're making a statement about reality. Your belief is a reflection of reality, and so therefore I would have to say you're making a claim about it. Yeah, that makes sense to me.
What if you substituted, I think you have $10 in your pocket? How does that change it for you?
I think it's still the same. I think there's a difference between saying I know you have $10 in your pocket. I would say that is a claim, whereas a belief is just the acceptance of something you think is true. It's not really a claim. That's how I look at it.
Maybe. I don't know. I think people have been studying these issues for a really long time, and there's just different ideas of what it means for knowledge and stuff. But John, you were going to say something, John. You were ready. What were you going to say?
No.
Okay.
I'm actually running the thing. I think that you have $10 in your pocket. I believe you have $10 in your pocket, and I know you have $10 in your pocket.
Or how about this? I think it's most probable that you have $10 in your pocket. What if you introduce probability? I think if you introduce probabilities, you're still, that's more making a bet, I guess. I don't know. It's very rare that I make claims where I say that I absolutely know something to be sure anymore, And so, yeah, I don't know. If I was to say, I think you have $10 in your pocket, that to me, that's almost the same as saying I have reason to believe you have $10 in your pocket.
Yeah,
but maybe
I was going to ask what is your what point are you driving towards?
Yeah.
The point I'm driving towards is if we're going to be accused of not accused, but if we're going to be if atheists are going to say that we're making claims, then it's upon the atheist to prove that we're making claims, right? Because it's not. I don't see a belief to be a claim. So every time an atheist asks me for evidence, I'm always thinking, when did I make a claim? All I'm doing is stating my beliefs, right?
Well, if you say I believe that God exists, for example, if we want to go that far, then I would say that that's a claim, because again, you're describing reality, or at least something like reality in some way, And yeah, I don't know how you could separate that from a claim. Yeah.
I mean, it does sort of go with the next question is well, why?
Yeah.
Or how do you believe that? Or, I mean, a further explanation.
Mm-hmm.
Would an explanation be evidence? Would that be considered evidence?
Well, and I would say an argument isn't necessarily evidence. Like evidence and arguments might be two different things. You can make arguments about evidence, but an argument by itself may not be. But John was ready to jump the gun. I want to see what you had to say.
No, I mean, I would be interested in knowing if we were, sitting across, having a pint somewhere. I would say, oh, well, why is that? And then you would explain to me. And, probably, as a matter of fact, I'm of the opinion that most of the things would have to be, well, I feel, you would be using the words feel and sort of subjective reasoning. And I would find it interesting. I mostly find this stuff interesting until people start, voting and insisting that I need to feel the same way you do or believe the same way you do. So, but I don't. I recognize it as to me, it's more whether you call it a claim and evidence, and nothing is going to sort itself out in sort of a trial type of setting. It's a discussion. It's a discussion.
Yeah, I would only add on to that, Zach, that if you were to say to me, I believe in God, then I kind of have like a choice in that. I could say whether I also believe or whether I disagree. That's kind of what prompts me. And so if I disagree, and if I can disagree with something, then that means you have to be making a claim. You have to be saying something is true. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to disagree about what you're saying. You know what I'm saying? It's not a value neutral statement. Like you are saying something about reality, about the world that we live in. So I'm still caught up on the fact that I think it would be a claim. Yeah.
Yeah, I just think there's a subtle difference between saying something is true and saying I believe something to be true. I think there is just a subtle difference there.
Can you believe something that isn't true, though? Can you actively believe something that wouldn't be true? Because I'm assuming all of the things you believe would be true, right? Or you would hope them to be.
Yeah, if I believed something to be true and I was proven wrong, then yes, I was believing in something that wasn't true.
Yeah.
When you say the word "I believe," I automatically assume that there's a tenuousness about it.
When I say I believe, what I am saying is, according to the definition, is I accept. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
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 I don't think accepting something is claiming something.
Well, if you're accepting a claim, though, right? Like, what's the difference between accepting a claim and you making the claim?
The difference is I'm the one receiving the claim. I'm not the one making the claim. That's the difference.
But if you accept it, what's the difference between you accepting a claim to be true, right, and you just believing in a claim? I mean, like I guess I'm trying to make so like you may not be saying it, right? Maybe you're not the one saying, "Oh, God is real." Maybe somebody else is saying God is real, and you say, "Yeah, I accept that to be true." What's the difference between you saying I accept that to be true and you making the claim? I'm kind of struggling to find the difference there.
Yeah, the difference is that there are two entities, right? So let's take, for example, a prophet, right? So a prophet is the one making the claim. Mm-hmm. The people that follow the prophet are the ones that are accepting the claim. So when atheists ask the followers for proof, we have to turn around and say, hold on, we're not the ones making the claim. claim. We're just people who have accepted the claim.
But why would you?
What if I were to say to you, I believe we have tickets to the theater tonight.
Mm.
My first thing would be to say to the person, well, okay, but do we have tickets to the theater tonight? Because there's a belief seems to have, it's to me, that word is very wishy-washy.
Sure, yeah. And there's a reason why you believe something, right? So you use this metaphor of the prophet and the followers, which I think is excellent, by the way, for what you're trying to communicate with us. But presumably those followers are believing for a reason. It could be a bad reason, or it could be a good reason, but there's, people don't believe things automatically. There is a process there, right? So like what if you're a follower of a prophet and you are saying, yeah, I believe this to be true, presumably there's something why you would, and you would want to communicate that reason why to somebody else in order to convince somebody else of that belief to be being true, right?
That is true. I mean, the prophet example is just one. And many people sometimes just use their plain reasoning and come to the conclusion that there must be a creator, for example. So, for example, they look at the way the world works and the way nature works, and they'll say, wow, like, how do these mechanisms work? How does the system of nature work together? So there must be a fashioner. People come to the conclusion just through that reasoning. And I don't think it's, I don't know whether you think or believe reasoning is subjective or objective. That's another discussion. But people
we got to go ahead and get to our next calls here, unfortunately, Zach. But I do appreciate you calling in about this. It's important to have these kinds of discussions, figure out what we mean when we do use the word belief. So again, I do appreciate you're taking your time to watch the show. I hope you enjoy what you're seeing so far. And gonna have to let you go now, but thanks again for coming in. Yeah, what did you think about that, John?
I thought it's very interesting. I mean, very interesting.
Yeah. So the takeaway I get from that conversation is I see his point in the sense that, like, yeah, you may not be the initial person making that claim, right? Like, I believe in what scientists have to say about climate change, right? I've done zero climate change, like original climate change research, right? I'm not going into any greenhouses and doing experiments or anything, right? I'm believing what the people in those institutions are telling me. But if I'm going out to somebody and saying, hey, I think climate change is real, to me, that sounds like I'm making the claim, right? Whether or not I'm, the data that I'm gathering from, I was the first person to make it, that doesn't matter to me, right? It seems like I would still be making the claim. I don't know. Do you follow with that? Am I making sense?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, there we go. Let's go ahead and talk to our next caller.